Last time on BPO Night Live.
So I'd like you guys to meet Zelina. Hi,
Hi,
Z.
Hi,
Vicky.
everybody.
Hi, Zai. I miss you so much.
Miss you so much.
Oh my God. I remember I just walk up going to your house.
They tell me like their deepest, darkest life stories. Na parang, I can't help but look fabulous. No.
Maybe
I know, right?
For the most part, when an interviewer looks serious or looks mean, it's usually because they're processing what you're saying, and it's because we have to fill out evaluation forms.
yep.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Half of the time we have to like mentally prepare for the task at hand. In my
Yeah.
case, whenever I get pulled into an interview, because interviews aren't the only thing that I'm supposed to do, right? I
Yeah.
have other things to do. So sometimes when I get pulled into an interview, I'm like,
We can do this.
I have to stop and get this over with. So sometimes that, unfortunately, I mean, I don't mean to look mean or anything, but just game face is more. That's your default. It'll be even creepy if your default was.
Interviewer mo, no?
That cycle.
Something about.
Francis,
You're
that
like-
looks really scary.
But what's really scary with Francis, but well, he didn't interview me in a scary way, but sometimes when you use your British accent, people are thrown
Jesus.
off. They're like, and especially on the phone, and I would hear him because he would sit next to me, and
I do that for fun.
so sorry we kind of torture you like that. But
Sorry.
it's just one of those days to make, because every day you do interviews, so many interviews, and you just want to just what's new, what's exciting today, because it's the same old question, it's the same old answer. So yeah, throwing in a little bit of an accent, yeah.
But-
kind of
but,
interesting for language
Yeah.
comms or comms coach or trainers or interviewers. So I think that makes it a little interesting.
I know. I won't say normal, but regular people would think, okay, these people are weird. But no, that's
our thing.
that's where our happiness comes from. Okay. Doing something
And also-
different, doing something weird.
Something
It also helps to mix up the questions that we ask. Because you already have like the standard questions that interviewers would ask, and so
Yeah.
a lot of people, kasi, obviously they don't just send in their application to one company. They would send in their application to a lot of different companies, which is understandable because more chances of winning, more
Yep.
chances of getting hired. And so a lot of applicants, one of the mistakes that they make. So I appreciate that they do make the effort to practice and prepare, but a lot of times they end up sounding scripted. So if I say, okay, so tell me about your work experience, or what made you decide to join the BPO industry? So they already have all of those answers. So typically I would start off with the questions that I know they already know the answers to. And then I follow it up with a question that they would not think we would ask at an interview.
Yeah.
So like Gary said, my default question was, okay, teach me how to cook rice. Give me instructions. Yeah, tell me how to cook rice.
Okay, so that's a curveball question. So this is something that most applicants are not prepared. And actually, now the good thing with that question, Z, is that if you are going to be placed into a technical program wherein you have to troubleshoot and it is very technical, you need to step by step, you need to walk the customer through in that process step by step. And I think that's a fantastic way of trying to gauge whether they can pull that off or not. And mga kaBEEPs, that's a wonderful question. That is a perfect example wherein it's really important that in a few minutes you can walk your customer through the process clearly and concisely. Diba? Okay, so Z, go ahead, tell the story.
Okay.
Hopefully with the accent. Hopefully with the accent.
So we're not doing this to make fun of anyone, okay?
Disclaimer.
Disclaimer. So this is not to make fun of anyone. This is to help people understand that there are certain ways that your interviewers expect you to answer. And there are certain ways that, let's just say that there are certain ways you are expected to answer or communicate during an interview, because you have to remember this is a professional setting. So one of the reasons that I asked this question is, for one thing, no one expects it. Another thing is, it helps me see if the person is listening to what I'm saying or knows how to follow instructions. 3, if the person does know how to follow instructions and is listening to exactly what I'm saying, it'll show me if they can give instructions in a detailed manner, or if they're just going to give me like a really short and simple answer, or if they're going to go beyond the 5 minutes by going into too much detail. So I've had the answers that were disappointing, obviously, when they would say, oh, okay, you cook rice, you get the rice, you put it in your rice cooker. And I'm like, okay, thank you. So obviously, if they're not going to give me any other answers, I'm just going to move on to the next question. And then I get those answers as well that make up for the really short answer. So when I say, okay, tell me how to cook rice, they'd say, okay, first you go to you go to the kitchen, and then you look for your rice cooker first, and then you get your rice, and then you scoop the rice. So the thing is, like, they go into way too much detail. So it's good that, you know, they are following the instructions. At the same time, they're kind of forgetting that, okay, there's a time limit. There are other people outside waiting to be interviewed as well. So it also shows you if they're aware of how aware they are of the situation that they're in. Because typically the answer that I would look for, so this is already a kind of a giveaway, but if I say, okay, tell me how to cook rice, typically I would just, I would expect someone to say, okay, so you get a few scoops of rice, you put it in your rice cooker, or you put it in your rice cooker, you rinse the rice 2 or 3 times, set aside the rice water so you can use that to water your plants. That's a side note. You plug the rice cooker in, press the cook button, and then you just wait. Wow! So something like that. That's what I would expect. So, you know, it's detailed, but it's also straight to the point. And then I get,
there's more.
And that was just she was able to answer that in just 20 seconds, but it makes sense, isn't it?
So it doesn't have to be too much. And then there was this one person, bless his soul. So he said, okay, ma'am, so you get the rice and then you cook it. And then you get your mongoose, and then you put that in the pan, and then you put the water, and then like, he explains, like he continues to talk about it. What the hell? And then I'm trying to listen, and in my head it's like, did I miss something? Is he?
I'm sorry.
So I'm listening to him, I'm looking at him, and like I'm trying to write this down, and I'm processing everything in my head, because I think, wait, I asked the right question, right? Because I mix up, I don't ask the same set of questions per applicant. I have like different questions for different applicants, just in case, you know, like they're friends with each other and they say, oh, this is what she asked me, oh, this is what she asked me. So that's something that I do. So he was talking, and then in my head it's like, wait, what question did I ask? That's another reason that we have the RBF, because we think, wait, shit, what question did I ask again? Oh yeah, it was this question. So sometimes that happens. So I was looking at my evaluation form, and then I looked at him, and then I said, I'm sorry, what are you teaching me how to cook? And then he says, mongoose, ma'am. And I said, right, but I
what?
So he was teaching me how to cook mung beans. And then I said, right, but I asked you how to cook rice. He said, yes, mom, but right. And it's like, okay, so can you tell me how to cook rice? And he goes, yes, mom, but mom, what about the mongoose?
What? No, Marcos, what? What about those? I'm lost.
Ano, walang ulam.
Why kasi rice lang daw?
It's like, wait, no, that's not what I'm asking for.
He's trying to go over and beyond. He's thinking of the future.
Which is good, but listening skills, okay? So what your interviewer asks for, you just tell them what they're asking for.
It's just like when you
Kuya,
got a
magutom na.
customer over the phone, diba?
You know-
When you receive a customer, just tell them what they're asking for, diba? Just walk them through.
I think if you don't understand the question, it helps if you ask. You know, if it helps if you clarify that, you paraphrase that, so that it's clear for both parties. And I think a lot of interviewees would think that it's not right to ask questions to the interviewer or to paraphrase something. I think it would be best to do that rather than assuming that you're answering it correctly, right? So don't be assumptionistas. I always tell my trainees that. No assumptionistas, always be sure. Paraphrase that question, clarify, instead of trying to make mongos along.
Speaking of like assuming things. So another question that I asked besides cooking rice is I say, okay, teach me how to boil an egg. Give me instructions on how to boil an egg. A lot of times, so a lot more times than I expected. Probably 25% of the time, they would tell me how to fry an egg instead of telling me how to boil the egg.
kaBEEPs listening skills.
Yeah. And I'm very particular with how I say things as well. So I say, okay, so tell me how to boil an egg. And then they go, okay, so first you get your pan, and then you get your egg, and then you put some oil. And then I thought, oil? And then I just go, mm-hmm. And then they say, okay, so you crack the egg. And then usually I just nod because I don't have the time to ask them to do it all over again because I have to finish interviewing everybody who's waiting outside or everyone who's in the queue, because it will also be unfair to all of the other applicants if I make them wait because I'm letting another person do the interview all over again.
Especially if it's like a long day, like you have to meet a certain head count for a certain deadline. So for our kaBEEPs out there, we don't have the luxury, like your interviews won't have the luxury to repeat it. But if they do, they're giving you a chance. And if, let's say, they heard you and then maybe, decent accent or something like that, maybe I can just, restate the question. But sometimes, listening is everything too. So sometimes, is it worth repeating it to the person? So, yeah.
So that tells us a lot, actually. That tells us a lot. I mean, for the most part, I'm guessing maybe they were just really nervous. At times, there are people who say, wait, sorry, you said boil. No, sorry, I mean, okay, so when I boil an egg. So sometimes they backtrack, which I appreciate because it means it just took a second for them to realize, wait, no, I'm frying the egg. I'm supposed to boil it. So there was this other answer. So it wasn't from my interview. It was from somebody else's interview. And the interviewer told me the story. So what had happened was he also used the same question. Okay, so tell me how to boil an egg. And then the person goes, okay, so first you get the egg, you put in a container, and then you put it on fire.
Bonfire, camping. Marshmallow.
I mean, it is the general idea, I guess.
That's
Someone's friends with Lucifer. Put him on fire.
Oh my God. So, mga kaBEEPs, say what you mean, ha? 'Cause I've been a victim of that too. Like usually I'll ask, okay, so what are your hobbies? So some people would say, oh, I like playing with myself.
No.
I was there. That is true. I was there.
There's a difference between playing with yourself and playing by yourself. Okay.
Yes. So when you tell us language assessors or communications trainers that we're grammar Nazis and everything, grammar is everything. And if you miss that preposition by,
It changes the
Then,
message
yeah.
entirely.
So
And-
true.
and you become creepy to your interviewer.
My God.
And you're
Oh,
like,
God.
X out. No, this person might be harassing people or something.
Yeah.
I play by myself versus I play myself.
There's also another time it was more of a mock call. I don't know if it was an interview or what, but it kind of goes with what I just said. So it was the end of the call. It was an okay call. I won't say it was great, but okay, it was fine. It was passable. And then at the end, the person just said, "Is there anything else that I can do to you, sir?" I was doing, and the agent is you. I have a couple things in my mind, but I can't say it out loud here. I wanted to. Gusto ko nga eh. No. Can't.
Speaking of mock calls, oh my gosh! So this is like not. This is okay. So I remember one. So you know how like obviously in training, the trainees would like to have their fun, which is totally fine. And they joke around a lot, and they have like catchphrases that they say often, and that's okay. It is, as long as it doesn't affect work. And so I had this trainee who liked to say have a great hair day to everyone, like after the shift. So like when I would say goodbye to them, they'd say, okay, bye everyone, have a great hair day. And like I just, okay, that's fine. Then we did our mock call. So I was the customer, and then she, she did everything perfectly. Everything was spot on. And I was excited because I was like, okay, just one more box. I just need to check one more box. She passes, and I endorsed her to product specifics training. She ends the call with, all right, then in that case, thank you very much for calling ABC Company. Have a great hair day. She realizes it because I'm looking at her like, and it was a recorded certification too, because I had to forward that to my supervisor.
No.
And then she looks at me like, Z, and I'm like, what did I tell you? She completely stopped saying that after that incident. She never said it again.
Though? Did she pass?
I couldn't. She did, but not with that recording. We had to do another recording where she didn't say "Have a great hair day."
Okay. Or else she would have failed completely, and she would not have been endorsed.
So she always,
And that's
she would always say that, right? Like, have a great day. Have a great hair day. Like every day.
To all of her friends, like when the training ends, like at the end of the training day, she would jokingly say "Have a great hair day." It kind of became a habit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
So
'cause,
she ended up.
It's dangerous, what you do or say every day. So
Exactly. So after that, like she realized, no, I messed up, and so she just stopped saying it. I was like, see, this is why you have to be careful with the things that you say. She did pass, and she was just annoyed because she did so well on that mock call. Like she did so well, and it was just the great hair day part that we couldn't allow. But yeah, so like going back to interviews though, like speaking of not listening, or I don't know, maybe I feel like maybe they misconstrue the question. So I did this phone interview, and one of the things that I had to ask the person to do was count from 1 to 20 so that I could hear how their numbers sound like over the phone. Just so that, they don't mispronounce anything. I said, okay, all right. So could you please count for? Could you please count from 1 to 20 for me? And then she goes, okay.
In her mind.
And then I go, hello, are you still there? And then she goes, yes, ma'am.
And then I say,
and then I say, yeah. Can you please count from 1 to 20 out loud? Yes, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. 1, 2, 3. I was like, oh my gosh. She was counting in her head. I was like, okay. So I was like, okay, note to self, I'm going to explicitly tell everyone to count out loud then, just so that they don't make the same mistake.
Ikaw pala si may problema eh.
No to interviewers, ha?
No to interviewers.
Parang kasalanan ko.
Bilang interview, isa may tips dito, mga kaBEEPs, yung mga recruiters dyan. Hello po, kaway-kaway. Yung mga recruiters dyan. So make sure you are clear, ha? Kayo na mag-adjust.
So yes, I was like, okay, you know what? Let's, ako na.
Ikaw na mag-adjust, ma'am.
Ako na lang ulit.
Bakit? Parang kasalanan ako pa.
Sure. I have a question. Well, I understand that, grammar is so important when it comes to communication. But as an interviewer, are you guys grammar conscious? So do you tend to correct your interviewers when they are, very glaring grammar, challenges or problems? So how do you handle those types of applicants who, not really...
Well, in my case, no, but that makes sense. So in training, yes, I correct everyone in the room. I've had to stop myself from correcting people during an interview because for one thing, it takes time. Another thing is it's going to make them nervous, or they're probably going to get a little more stressed out because they're thinking, okay, I'm already messing up and it's just the initial interview. So typically, we don't really correct them on the spot. If we're given the chance to give them feedback, then we would give them feedback afterwards. But if not, we don't correct them on the spot. But if their statements are very confusing, then we just say, sorry, what do you mean? What did you mean when you said this? To give them a chance to say it again differently.
Yep. More of rephrasing. There's no chance for us to really, or maybe like, oh, did you mean this? Something like that.
Yeah.
If there's something missing, like, maybe if it's like a tense kind of thing, like a time kind of thing, and we want to figure out when that happened, that they're trying to express or talk about, I guess.
Correct. Actually, well, the reason why I asked that because I've read an article that's the number one reason or number one fear of an applicant for not to go on a BPO interview because of the grammar stuff. So yeah, I think that's a very good tip, Z. That I think also being corrected is also a good thing, but it's up to the person and how going to that kind of feedback to them. But for me, I think it's a learning curve for you to be able to be corrected and for you not to do it again, diba?
That's true. Yeah. And I think a lot of people kind of misconstrue that, or a lot of people do find it a little bit offensive, I guess, for lack of a better term, when they get corrected for the way that they communicate. And the thing is, in any other case, I would understand not needing to correct the way that someone speaks. If you're just hanging out with your friends, or if your job has nothing to do with communication. So that's fine. I have zero issues with that. But when it has something to do with work, and I know for a fact that the way that this person is communicating is going to negatively affect the way that they perform when they're in training or when they officially get to the production floor, that's when we get really strict and we get really particular. And so for the most part, for the most part, a lot of people will say, oh my God, she's going to EOP me again. Why is she so OA, blah, blah, blah. And I get that. I get that it's annoying. I am also tired of reminding people to speak in English when I'm at the office. But ultimately, we kind of, this is something that I noticed. So the more I EOP'd people, obviously, like, the more people became aware that, okay, yes, I'm going to speak in English. The fewer mistakes, I guess, were reported by ops to training.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I finally decided, okay, you know what, I'm tired. I'm tired of reminding people to speak in English. So the other trainers and I also stopped reminding people to speak in English. And oh my gosh, ops immediately, like, after a few weeks, ops like contacted training and like asked for like support because their agents could not communicate properly anymore. Something as simple as that. So that's, they're like, see, and y'all telling us that you don't want to speak in English. Exactly.
And that reminds me of Apple. That reminds me of Apple. During the time in our office, Apple, every time that we see Apple, everyone goes silent. No one's gonna talk because Apple's coming in. Because Apple's about to say, EOP guys, EOP.
And I don't care. That's
Yeah.
I don't care.
Correct.
It's called P at the end, which is policy. And I think I'm on the right side. So sometimes when you do, it's very, superhero or cliche to say it, but when you're doing the right thing, sometimes people don't necessarily get on board with you, and you just have to do it. You just have to do that, and it helps because veering away from the interview part. I've had experiences where people, even if they're not my trainees or they're no longer my trainees, even on the floor or even at the elevator, even outside, even outside the building, even at the smoking area, they still do EOP around me. So I think it's the language trainers or comms trainer life.
Correct.
To do that, it's like automatic. Like, can we speak Tagalog already? Or super. There's a hiya factor. Like, no, I don't want to ask her to say like we're gonna speak Tagalog or something because I know she prefers to speak in English anyway. So it's just really nice that there are people like us, like authority or a figure where, when this person comes in, there's
so they're kind of like conditioned already.
Yeah, and it's good because it makes sense that you have to always do that. You don't need a person really, but if it has to come to that, then why not?
Yeah, that's why there is a saying, only your headset and your comms trainer will make you speak in English.
I have never heard of that.
You know that?
I love it.
That makes sense though. That makes sense.
Yes.
That's true.
Depende, pag hinihiring ko yung mga tao, nag-i-English din sila kapag ako kausap. Hanggang sa which is funny, yung tipong mga after ng admin hearing, or during the admin hearing, alam mo yung ibang mga tao bigla nagbe-break doon, pwede po mag-Filipino na lang.
So like when let's say I see, so like my trainees or my agents, they have to go to, let's say, the support bay, they need to talk to HR, they need to talk to finance. Typically I don't EOP them anymore. But I always tell them that I'm very particular when it comes to training and being on the prod floor. And one of the stories that I tell my trainees so that they understand how important EOP is. So this was like at a previous place that I worked. There was this one agent who I EOP'd so much at the pantry because the policy there was the entire building was EOP, including the bathroom. It doesn't matter where you are. If you're within the building, you have to speak in English. It doesn't matter where you are. Yeah.
Even in the bathroom, literally, yes.
You have to speak in English. And the thing was, it just so happened that this agent and I had like the same breaks. So I think I've EOP'd this person like 2 or 3 times. And like he he wasn't very nice. And that's putting it lightly. He wasn't very nice. And he was kind of like, he does speak very well. He sounds really good. Like he could potentially be a trainer someday.
Wow.
But because he sounds good and he knows that he knows how to speak in English properly, he kind of thinks, well, EOP shouldn't count for me anymore because I already sound like this anyway, so I should be able to speak whatever language I want to speak when I'm in the office.
He
So
did
that
not
was the
say
mindset that he had.
Oh my god.
Well, he didn't say it to be like he didn't say it to me explicitly, but like that was more or less the message that he was giving me, and I was like, and like, okay, I already gave the warning, I already reported this to the supervisor, I can't really do anything about this anymore. 2 weeks later, this exact same person, so he was on a call, and oh my gosh, so many red flags because the person told the customer that he was going to put him on hold so that he could check his resources, which is fine. He made so many mistakes. One, he did not put the person on hold. He did not put the customer on hold. He thought that he just put the customer on mute. The thing was, his mute button didn't work.
Oh.
And yeah, exactly. And so that's the one, did not put on hold properly. 2, did not even put on mute properly. 3, asked for advice from his team leader in Tagalog.
No.
4, the customer could hear everything that he was saying. 5, it just so happened that this was a call that the client was listening to.
No.
Wow! Grand slam, grand slam.
It's like everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And sorry to say, he got terminated that day.
Let me just say, karma is a bleep that. Pero
And so I tell that story to my trainees all the time to remind them, okay, when you tell your customer you're going to put them on hold, you have to actually put them on hold.
Not mute.
You can't rely on your mute button all the time. And you never know if the client is listening to your call because there will be zero indication of that. So you just have to assume that the clients are always listening. That's why you have to be very careful.
Correct. And
there.
that's why I think that really helps a lot every time that you guys, especially the comms trainers, always advise or remind everyone to speak in English. And let's just stop the EOP shaming. You know, I've seen a lot of memes that, why is this person still talking English even in an elevator, vicinity at the office, So let's stop EOP shaming everyone, especially the newbies, because they're trying and they're abiding with the policy.
They
and
are.
the experienced people, they're trying to emulate you, diba? They need a role model. Oh wow, the experienced people, they sound so good. They're experienced. They're 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years in the industry, and they sound so good, like so fluent, right? So fluent. But sadly, as interviewers and language trainers, not everyone with experience sound like that.
Correct. Actually, when I was still an agent, I'm actually just like them. Like, why is she asking me to speak in English? I'm in the pantry. And that's when I realized that the more that you're practicing yourself speaking in English, you will be able to, do that while you are taking in calls. So you never know that you're talking in English fluently, So it really practice you a lot. So always EOP, guys.
That's true. And in my trainees' cases, so sometimes if I know that I have a little extra on the side, sometimes I tell my trainees, okay, so like if especially if it's like a bigger class and it is a little more challenging to get everyone to speak in English. So they usually have their like groups and stuff. So I would divide the class into like 3 or 4 groups. And then I would say, okay, so whichever team does not violate EOP at all this entire week, and I mean anywhere, I don't catch anyone violating EOP, that team is going to get pizza.
Wow, pizza!
Wow.
Galant
Alberto's
ni
lang
Ma.
naman, but
Wow.
you know, it's still something. It's like, oh, free
Sana
pizza, and that
all.
usually, yeah, and that's only when I know that I have like a little extra
Mm.
on the side. And then I also tell them, okay, but and then they're like, okay, Z, but what if someone does violate EOP? And then I say, okay, in that case, so if you don't violate EOP, I buy you pizza. If your team violates EOP, even if it's just one person on your team violating EOP, your whole team buys me pizza.
Ooh, I like that. Why I've
The
never
challenge,
thought of
ah.
that. I
And
love
it works. It actually works.
that. Yeah.
Mostly because they don't want to buy me the pizza. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. If it works, it works.
Mm.
So yeah, I've had to buy pizza a few times.
Next time on BPO Night Live.
What can you say about people trying to come up with an accent? You don't need to wear anything, kaBEEPs. Charot.
Delikado yan.
And then he's gonna ask, is there anything else that
Dressing
I
is
can do to
optional.
you?
Charot.
I also have an acronym.
Okay, what is your acronym?
HELE.
Follow us for more BPO talks and tips on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at BPO Night Live. You can watch us on our official Facebook page or on our YouTube channel. BPO Night Live is also heard as a podcast on Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast listening apps.